Welcome to Life Stories Network, where every story carries a piece of the heart and a lesson for the soul. Tonight, I want to share a moment that started so simply, almost quietly, but changed my entire perspective as a parent. I was about to sleep, the house calm after a long day, when suddenly I heard a knock on my door. At first, I thought it might be a mistake, maybe the wind against the frame, but then I heard it again. Soft, hesitant, familiar. It was my son. I had just pulled the blanket over myself, my body begging for rest after hours of work and chores. My eyelids were heavy, and all I wanted was the comfort of sleep. But there's something about a child's knock that feels different, almost urgent, even if it's soft. Parents know this instinctively. You can tell when it's not just about borrowing a charger or asking for water. That night, I felt something stirring inside me, telling me this knock carried weight. I called out, asking who it was. His voice came through the door, gentle but uneasy. "Dad, can I come in?" he asked. My heart skipped a beat because it wasn't his usual tone. It wasn't casual or light. It carried something heavier, something unspoken. I told him to come in, and as he slowly pushed the door open, I noticed how his shoulders seemed lower, as though the world had pressed down on him in a way I hadn't seen before. He walked in quietly, avoiding eye contact at first, which instantly worried me. As a parent, you can sense when your child is carrying a burden, and I could feel that from across the room. He sat down on the edge of my bed, fidgeting with his hands, almost as if he was gathering the courage to speak. My exhaustion quickly faded. I sat up straight, my mind racing through possibilities. Had something gone wrong at school, with friends, or maybe something deeper? I didn't want to push too hard, so I asked gently, "What's going on, son?" There was a long silence before he finally took a deep breath. When he looked up, his eyes shimmered under the dim light of the room. He was holding back tears, and that sight alone broke me. My son wasn't one to cry easily, and seeing him like that told me this moment wasn't ordinary. My heart ached with both fear and love, desperate to be strong for him. He whispered softly, "Dad, I need to tell you something, but I don't know how." My mind spun, but I kept my face calm, giving him the space to find his words. I reached out and held his hand firmly, reminding him that whatever it was, he wasn't alone. "Take your time," I said. "I'm here. Nothing you say will change how much I love you." His lips trembled, and for a moment, he just sat there, tears finally rolling down his cheeks. The silence in the room felt heavier than any words could be. I waited, my heart pounding. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked with raw emotion. "Dad, I'm scared. I've been keeping something from you, and it's eating me inside. I didn't want to disappoint you." Those words pierced my heart. As a parent, you want your child to feel safe, not fearful of your reaction. I quickly pulled him closer, holding him as tightly as I could, assuring him that nothing he could say would ever make me stop being his father. He shook his head slightly, tears wetting my shoulder. "You always believe in me, Dad, but I don't believe in myself. I've been struggling, pretending I'm okay when I'm not." My chest tightened. It was like hearing the quiet cry of a soul too young to carry such heavy burdens. I pulled back gently, wiping the tears from his face, and told him, "Son, your worth is not defined by perfection or pretending. It's defined by your courage to be honest and your strength to keep going, even when it's hard." His eyes met mine, filled with both pain and hope. "But Dad, what if I fail? What if I'm not the son you hoped for?" That question shattered me, because in that moment, I realized he had been carrying not just his own fears, but also the pressure of my expectations, even though I never intended it that way. I cupped his face in my hands and said firmly, "Listen to me. You could never fail in my eyes. You are my son, and that alone makes you everything I could ever hope for. Success, Failure, mistakes, achievements, none of that changes the love I have for you. His tears fell harder, but so did mine. For years, I thought I had shown him enough love through actions, sacrifices, and providing for him. But that night, I realized sometimes words need to be spoken aloud. Sometimes love needs to be not just shown but said, directly, clearly, without hesitation. Because children, no matter their age, need to hear those affirmations. They need to feel them sink deep into their hearts. We sat there in silence for a while, just holding each other. The house outside our room was still, the night wrapping us in its quiet embrace. I could feel his breathing slowly calm against my chest, his trembling easing with every word of reassurance I whispered. "You're not alone, son. You'll never be alone. We'll face everything together, step by step. Whatever you're afraid of, we'll handle it as a family." And as I said those words, I felt him grip me tighter, as if he was finally letting go of a weight he had carried for far too long. That night, what began as a simple knock on my door became a turning point. It reminded me that parenting isn't about always having the answers. It's about being present, listening without judgment, and loving without condition. My exhaustion no longer mattered. Sleep didn't matter. What mattered was that my son felt safe enough to come to me, to share his fears, and to trust that my love wouldn't waver. As we sat in that quiet room, I could feel how fragile the moment was, like holding glass in my hands. My son had opened a door in his heart that he'd kept locked for so long, and I knew I couldn't just let it close again. I rubbed his back slowly, waiting for him to speak more, letting him know I wasn't going anywhere, no matter how long it took for him to find his voice again. After a few minutes, he lifted his head, his eyes swollen from crying. "Dad," he said softly, "sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in expectations. Not just yours, but mine too. Everyone thinks I'm strong, that I can handle anything. But inside, I'm scared. I'm scared of letting people down." His words cracked, and for the first time, I realized how heavy the invisible backpack of responsibility was that he carried every day. I reached for his hands again, squeezing them tightly. "Son, expectations can feel like chains if we carry them alone. But you're not alone. You've got me, your family, and more importantly, you've got the right to stumble, to fall, and to get back up again. No one is perfect, not even me. You don't have to pretend to be." He looked at me, almost surprised, as if he had never thought I could understand. He let out a shaky laugh through his tears. "But Dad, you always seemed so strong. I've never seen you break down like this. I thought maybe you never had fears." His innocence stung me, and I knew it was time to show him a side of myself I had kept hidden. "Son, I've had fears every step of the way. I was terrified when you were born, wondering if I'd ever be a good father. I was scared when money was tight, when life threw challenges at us. I just didn't want to show you, because I thought I had to be a rock. But rocks crack too, son. And that's okay." He stared at me, his expression shifting from sadness to a strange comfort, like the realization that even his father wasn't invincible gave him permission to be human. He whispered, "So it's okay to be scared sometimes?" I nodded firmly. "It's more than okay. Fear doesn't mean weakness. It means you care. And caring deeply, that's real strength." His lips curved into the faintest smile, and in that smile, I saw the boy I raised and the young man he was becoming all at once. The night stretched on as we talked, time slipping away unnoticed. He opened up about his struggles at school, how pressure from teachers and peers made him feel cornered. He admitted he compared himself constantly to others, feeling like he was always 2 steps behind. My heart ached as he spoke because I had no idea he was carrying all of this inside, quietly battling shadows alone. I told him something I had learned far too late in life. Comparison is a thief, son. It steals joy and blinds us to our own progress. You don't have to be like anyone else. You only have to be you. And being you is more than enough." He nodded slowly, letting those words sink in, and I hoped they would anchor him whenever doubt tried to pull him under again. At one point, his tears turned into quiet laughter as we shared stories. I told him about my own youth, how I made mistakes that I thought would ruin everything, yet somehow life carried me forward anyway. He listened intently, sometimes shaking his head in disbelief that his father, his role model, had once been just as lost as he felt now. I could see the weight slowly lifting from his chest as he realized he didn't have to carry perfection as his identity. But then he asked me a question that cut deep. "Dad, have I ever disappointed you?" His voice was timid, almost childlike. I didn't even hesitate. "Never," I said firmly, my throat tight. "You could never disappoint me. I might worry about you, I might push you at times, but that's only because I want to see you thrive. But disappointment? No. You're my son, my pride. I love you for who you are, not for what you achieve." His tears welled again, but this time they felt lighter, freer, as if my words had unlocked a healing inside him. The clock ticked past midnight, yet neither of us cared. Sleep seemed unimportant compared to the sacred connection happening between father and son. We talked about dreams, fears, and even silly things that made us laugh until our stomachs hurt. It was as if that knock on my door had torn down a wall between us, leaving nothing but truth, honesty, and love in its place. At one point, he leaned against me, his head on my shoulder, and whispered, "I feel lighter, Dad. Like I can breathe again." My heart swelled at those words because that's what love is supposed to do. It's supposed to lift, not weigh down. I kissed the top of his head and told him, "Anytime you feel heavy, you come to me. Don't lock it away. My door will always be open, no matter the hour." He smiled softly, and for the first time that night, I saw hope shining in his eyes. It wasn't the complete end of his struggles, I knew that. But it was the beginning of healing, the start of a journey where he wouldn't have to walk alone anymore. And that meant everything. The night finally began to wind down. His body slumped against me, exhaustion catching up after such an emotional release. I tucked him in gently on the couch in my room, covering him with a blanket. Watching him sleep peacefully after hours of turmoil filled me with gratitude. That knock at my door could have been ignored. I could have told him to talk tomorrow. But if I had, this moment of connection might have slipped away forever. As I lay back down in my own bed, I stared at the ceiling, my heart full and my eyes moist. Life had just reminded me that sometimes the most important conversations don't happen in daylight, planned and structured. They happen late at night, when honesty is too heavy to hold until morning. That night, my son taught me that love isn't just about being present, it's about being available at any time, even when you're tired, even when you think you have nothing left to give. And as I finally drifted to sleep, I knew one thing for certain: that knock on my door wasn't just my son reaching for me, it was life reminding me to always keep my heart open. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, the events of the night replaying in my head like a movie I couldn't turn off. The sun filtered gently through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. My son was still asleep on the couch, his chest rising and falling steadily, a calmness on his face that I hadn't seen in a long time. I watched him for a moment, realizing how close I had come to missing this, how easily I could have brushed off that late-night knock. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. As I went into the kitchen to make breakfast, I couldn't stop thinking about what he had shared. His fears, his insecurities, the way he had felt crushed by the invisible weight of expectations. I had always believed I was giving him freedom and support, but clearly, somewhere along the way, he had started to think my love was conditional. That realization broke me, and I promised myself I would never let him feel that way again. When he finally woke up and shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, I greeted him with a smile and his favorite breakfast already on the table. He looked surprised, almost shy. "Morning, Dad," he said quietly, as if unsure whether last night's honesty had changed anything between us. I pulled out a chair for him and patted it, reassuring him that nothing had changed, except maybe our bond, which had grown even stronger. As we ate, I kept the conversation light, talking about everyday things at first. I could see him slowly relax, realizing that life hadn't fallen apart because he had shown me his vulnerable side. That was important. He needed to know that being honest didn't come with punishment or shame. And then, as he buttered his toast, he looked up and said, "Thanks for last night, Dad. I don't think I could have kept all of that inside much longer." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You never have to keep it inside again, son. Not with me. This house, this family, this heart, it's your safe place. Always." His eyes watered, but this time it wasn't out of fear. It was relief. I could see it, the peace settling into him, the freedom of finally being understood. And in that moment, I knew the long night had been worth every second. Later that day, as we went about our routines, something felt different between us. There was a closeness, a subtle unspoken connection. He was more open, sharing little things here and there that he might have kept bottled up before. I listened, truly listened, and responded with patience instead of rushing him. I realized that parenting isn't just about discipline and guidance. It's about creating a space where your child feels safe enough to bring you their fears without hesitation. That evening, he came into the living room where I was reading, and without saying much, he sat beside me. After a while, he leaned his head on my shoulder. No words were needed. The gesture spoke volumes. He trusted me again, maybe more than he ever had before. My heart swelled with gratitude, and I silently promised myself never to take that trust for granted. Days passed, and I noticed small changes in him. He smiled more. He seemed lighter, like a burden had been lifted. He even started talking about his goals with excitement instead of dread. One night, while we were walking together, he admitted, "Dad, I don't feel as scared anymore. I still have worries, but knowing you're with me, it makes me braver." Those words touched me deeply, because that's all I ever wanted, to give him courage through my love. I realized then that sometimes the biggest life lessons don't come from the parent to the child. They come from the child to the parent. My son taught me that silence can be dangerous, that sometimes the strongest looking people are fighting the hardest battles inside. He reminded me that real strength comes not from hiding your emotions, but from sharing them with someone who cares. And as much as I thought I had been teaching him how to live, he was teaching me something even greater: how to love more openly, how to listen without judgment, and how to see past the surface into the heart. It was a lesson I would carry for the rest of my life. Looking back, I realized how close I came to missing it all. If I had told him to wait until morning, if I had brushed off that late-night knock, he might have closed himself off, burying those feelings deeper, maybe even building walls too high for me to climb later. But because I chose to listen, because I chose to stay awake a little longer, everything changed. So if you're a parent listening to this story, I hope you remember this. Sometimes the most important conversations happen at the most inconvenient times. Sometimes a knock at your door in the middle of the night isn't just a sound. It's a plea, a heart asking for help. Don't ignore it. Don't delay it. Because that moment could be the difference between your child feeling alone and your child feeling loved. That night with my son wasn't just a conversation. It was a turning point. It reminded me that love has to be shown not only through providing and protecting, but also through listening, understanding, and being present in the quietest, most fragile moments. It reminded me that sometimes, love means losing sleep so your child can rest easier. As I tell you this story now, I feel grateful. Grateful for that knock. grateful for the courage my son had to open up, grateful that I had the chance to remind him of his worth, and grateful that through it all, our bond grew stronger than ever before. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. I was about to sleep, tired and ready to shut the world out, but instead I opened my door, and in doing so, I opened my heart even wider. That night will stay with me forever, not as a moment of exhaustion, but as a memory of connection, healing, and unconditional love between a father and his son. So whenever I hear a knock now, no matter the time, I don't just hear a sound, I hear an opportunity. An opportunity to listen. An opportunity to love. An opportunity to remind the people closest to me that they are never alone. And that, I believe, is the true heart of family. Because sometimes, the smallest knocks carry the biggest truths. And sometimes, what feels like an interruption is actually a blessing in disguise. That night, my son didn't just come to me with his fears, he gave me a gift. The gift of seeing his heart, raw and unguarded. The gift of knowing he trusted me enough to share his pain. And the gift of realizing that love, when spoken and shown, truly does heal. And that, my friends, is why I'll never forget the night I was about to sleep, and my son knocked with surprising news. It wasn't just a knock. It was a turning point. It was love knocking on my door, and I'll always be thankful I answered.